didn't know that I had not done any UFO cases yet. That my technique was designed to take people into past lives. And I said, I'm going to have to change it to keep them in this lifetime. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. So I showed up, and I didn't tell them this was my first time to try it. But it worked beautifully. And she went back into the scene, and she was on board the ship and all of this. And I said, wow, this is interesting. It really does work. So after that, Lou and Jerry, I don't know if Jerry's still here or not. Jerry, did you go back or are you still here? Did he leave? Okay. Jerry Blackburn. I told you in the early days, it was Lou Parrish and Ed Major, the ones that did the conference, but Jerry Blackburn was involved too. So they began to hear about people who thought they had experiences. And they called me up and they said, well, you want to go and see this person? They didn't know anything about them. All they knew was their story that they heard. So we, the three of us, me and Lou and Jerry, would go to the person's house and have a session. Didn't know anything about them. So we had some fascinating things happen that nobody would be able to explain. I saw the human body do things that are impossible to do. Now I'm used to it because now my hypnosis is focused on the healing. And I see the body do things that are impossible for it to do when they put your body back together again and completely rebuild the body. But in those days, I was not prepared for that. So I want to tell you one case that we went on in the early days, and it was here in Arkansas. And this couple, back in the hills, kind of like Travis, you know, back there in Snowflake, Arizona, nobody knows anything about any of this stuff. And they were back in the hills, and they were living in a little house out in the middle of nowhere. And they had this strange experience, and they wanted us to come and investigate it. And we go to the house and pull up. It's a very simple house. And the mother-in-law is there, and she said, you want some peach cobbler? And it's that kind of an atmosphere, very down-home, basic. Well, the story we got, before I did the hypnosis, I wanted to do both the husband and the wife. They said that they had been in their truck driving back from church late at night, and they saw this huge light. Well, they pulled over to watch it, and the man gets out of the car, and his wife keeps hollering and screaming at him, get back in the car, get back in the car. And the thing is right over the truck, huge, this bright light shining down in the truck. And he's standing next to the truck watching this thing. And she finally was screaming at him enough, she got him back into the truck and they went home. Now, I want you to see what you can figure out this is. The next day, his whole side was black where it had been burned. Under his ring, on this one side, was black where it had been burned. He had terrible headache, aches and pains in his joints, and then a day or so later, all his hair began to fall out. So what does that sound like to you? He was in a radiation field. The wife was in the truck. She was not affected. But he was standing outside the truck, and we figured out his side that was next to the truck probably reflected off, and that was where he got the burns from the metal on the truck, and the same with his ring. So the next few days, he began to experience radiation reactions. So they wanted to know what happened. So this is when I did the session with the man, and Jerry said later, I wish we would have had a video camera, but I don't think the video camera could have picked it up. As we went through it, and he goes through the experience where they park the truck and he gets out of it, and he's going through the whole thing, describing it. I saw the body, his body began to vibrate. Not shaking, that's too much. Vibrating. All of the skin, the hair, everything. I was looking at it when I'm talking to him, I'm thinking, it's moving. And I motioned to Jerry and Lou, and they came over, leaning right over. They could see it. It was so slight that I don't think a camera could have picked it up. The hair, everything was vibrating. The whole body was vibrating. And you know you can't make your body do that. It's impossible. It was doing it. I think he was reliving being in that radiation field. So that's the kind of cases we were doing. And I've never written about a lot of this. We were making reports and we were trying to turn them into MUFON. Now, no offense to MUFON people that are in the audience now, but in those days, they wouldn't have anything to do with me. They had to be nuts and bolts science. You had to be able to see it, touch it, or dissect it, or it didn't exist. And with hypnosis, they didn't want anything to do with it. So a lot of these things they weren't interested in hearing. I did a lot of in-field investigations for them. I would go out and get soil samples where people thought something had landed. And I was doing a lot with them, but they would not accept the hypnosis. Now I'm hearing that they're more open-minded. I hope they are. But in those days, I even did sessions in front of the MUFON investigators, and they ridiculed. All during the session, they were ridiculing what I was doing. And so I said, I'm not going to ever do it again in front of investigators like that, because that's not fair to the subject, to the client. I hope I'm not insulting those of you who are in MUFON now. You forgive me? Okay. Because that was the way it was in those days. And Lou and all of us, we had an uphill battle that they didn't believe in unless you had pictures or you had something, an object you could really